What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and it's Top 10 Thursday. In the world of gaming we have a lot of fun, but behind the scenes these companies are competing against each other to be the very best. Most of the time this works in our favor, but occasionally there's some pretty bad blunders. This week we're counting down our list of Top 10 game company fails. Number 10. Mass Effect 3's ending. BioWare is a company that knows storytelling better than anyone. After skillfully crafting the worlds of Dragon Age, Jade Empire, and Knights of the Old Republic, fans were pretty confident that they would end the mighty Mass Effect series with a bang. What we were expecting was a triumphant conclusion to the hundreds of hours we'd spent in space, but what we got instead was a giant slap in the face. Despite the hundreds of branching decision points throughout the trilogy, at the very end, you got three options. Destroy the space robots, join the space robots, or control the space robots. No subtlety, no nuance. You basically got three flavors of ice cream that you could choose from. Gamers were understandably outraged, feeling that this was all just a giant ploy for EA to sell them more DLC down the road. People were so upset that they ended up voting EA Worst Company of the Year in 2012. Number 9. Daikatana. This is John Romero. He's the famous co-creator of the Doom franchise and also founder of id. John Romero wanted to make his own game, so he set out to start his own company called Ion Storm. The idea behind this company was to treat developers like rock stars and always put fun first. The problem is, for some reason, they just couldn't seem to figure out how the hell to make a good game. After lots of delays, John Romero started showing up at game conferences, hyping up his new game called Daikatana. It was supposed to be amazing, with intuitive AI, crazy lighting, and all new weapons. Really, he said it was going to be the best game ever. For some reason, he also started buying ad space in gaming magazines. This thing you see here, this is a real ad. It said that John Romero is going to make you his bitch. This was an actual ad for the game, and as you can imagine, it pissed a lot of people off. You know what? None of that would have mattered though. If Daikatana had been the masterpiece that had been promised, I think everything would have been okay. But when it came out, it was a colossal failure. Game critics and game players could agree, this was not worth the wait. This was one giant colossal screw you to gamers. Number 8. Nintendo says online play is dead. In 2004, the Xbox and PlayStation 2 were already out, exploring online play in all new ways. This meant console gamers were able to play online for the first time ever, and really, this was an all-new frontier for us. Nintendo, though, was strangely absent. They didn't want to join in on the fray. In fact, Nintendo executives said gamers don't want online games. They said online gaming is just a phase, and Nintendo doesn't want to bother buying into a temporary fad. It's kind of funny to look back on this in modern day. I mean, online gaming is humongous. World of Warcraft was one of the biggest games ever, and that's an online-only game. This lack of interest in online gaming actually held Nintendo back quite a bit. About the GameCube era is when rumors started going around. People started saying, Nintendo, that's a kids company. And unfortunately, that label still follows them today. Number 7. Myth II Soulblighter. The company Bungie is well known as the creators of Halo and Destiny, but back in the 90s they actually made a very wide variety of games, including real-time strategy titles. One of these was called Myth II Soulblighter. It was a game that got great reviews, but it did have one tiny little glitch. If you uninstalled it improperly, it would wipe your entire hard drive, and I do mean everything. Movies you've downloaded, your save files, even the soundtrack to Frozen would all vanish in an instant. The bad part was though, they didn't notice this until after they had shipped it, so because of this, they had to do a rushed recall, pulling every single copy back to headquarters to be destroyed and replaced with functioning copies. This impromptu re-release ended up costing them all the profits, setting Bungie back for years and nearly crushing the company as we know it. Number 6. The Sega Saturn launch. When you announce a console, you really gotta hype it just right. You need to show the features, talk about how cheap it is, and show off all the games you're currently making and will soon be available. Seems pretty simple, right? Well, for some reason in 1995, Sega decided to surprise launch the Sega Saturn in America. At E3 they took the stage, talking about how Saturn was going to be the future of gaming. But then comes the twist. It's already in stores. That's right, they just decided to spring it on everybody, including the game developers. Nobody was prepared with any completed products. In fact, for the first 3 months this console was out, it only had 4 games. Needless to say, sales were catastrophic, and Sega lost millions upon millions of dollars with what was supposed to be a happy surprise. Number 5. Deal with it. The Xbox One has a very solid fan base now, but back in 2013, Microsoft was facing some serious backlash about the console. When it was first being talked about, there was news that it was going to be always online. Now what this means in a nutshell is, if you're not currently plugged into the internet, your system can't play games. This seemed like a really odd decision to gamers, so they wanted answers. They began to tweet all the Microsoft executives they could, just asking why. Why make a decision that would restrict gamers so much? To counteract this negative press, Microsoft Studios creative director Adam Orth decided to take to Twitter and respond by ruthlessly mocking gamers who were upset about this decision. He started writing tweet after tweet, even going so far as to hashtag it with "deal with it," basically telling gamers that their voices didn't matter. What Microsoft wants, Microsoft gets. He even posted this really smug looking picture of Barack Obama shrugging, like, who gives a fuck what you think? Some Microsoft fans were so angered by this that they actually started to go out and sell everything they owned that was Microsoft related. Xboxes, Xbox 360s, and all of their games being traded in to buy PlayStation products. They take a photograph of thousands of games on trade-in counters and tag it "Deal with it" in honor of Adam Orth's blatant disrespect of the fan base that made him who he is. Number 4. The PlayStation Network hack. Most of the entries on this list focus around the screw-ups of just a few people in a company. But this one is colossal. This fail is so legendary it landed him in trouble with the government. In 2011, someone broke into the PSN database, gaining access to all personal and credit card information for every single one of the 77 million accounts that were exposed during this attack. Now, if this was just a standard hack, I think we'd all move on, but there was one little small detail that came out afterward. It turned out Sony wasn't actually properly encrypting any data. This extreme lack of security ended up landing them in some pretty hot water. They got in trouble with both fans and the government. Number 3. Nintendo leading to the creation of the PlayStation. In modern day, both Sony and Nintendo are gaming giants, but for decades, Sony primarily centered its business around standard household electronics. In the late 80s though, Nintendo had become interested in making a disc-based add-on for their Super NES. They decided to approach Sony and make a deal. The idea was simple, to have an all-in-one entertainment media device, but after the initial development, Nintendo and Sony decided to part ways. Nintendo went on to create their Nintendo 64, and Sony went on to make the PlayStation. It's so fascinating to think about how Nintendo ended up creating its greatest rivalry, that if this deal hadn't fallen through, we might not have the PlayStation as we know and love today. Number 2. The Red Ring of Death. If you're watching this video, I'm guessing at some point you've seen an Xbox 360 go red ring. Microsoft was in such a hurry to get the Xbox 360 to market, but they actually missed one small detail while they were testing it. If you played your console a lot, the heat would build up inside, and it would melt the internal processor, causing it to break the system itself. When they were testing these things at Microsoft headquarters, they had proper ventilation. People were sitting down and playing all the games that they had available to test. No one really sat down and played it for weeks and weeks at a time. So really, they didn't foresee this happening. Unfortunately, due to this oversight, 1 in 4 Xbox 360 consoles that shipped died in the first 6 months. Microsoft tried to do the right thing though. They made a promise. If your console died of the Red Ring of Death, they'd replace it, no questions asked. Although this was a good move, at the end of this whole fiasco, they ended up spending over $1 billion shipping these new fresh consoles all over the world. Number 1. The gaming crash of 1983. Atari is often hailed as one of the godfathers of console gaming, but what many people forget is they nearly sunk the entire industry before it ever really began. In the late 1970s, Atari consoles were flying off the shelves. They were just making them as fast as they could. One secret to the success was that they were cheap and you had a ton of games to choose from. In fact, anybody who wanted to develop a game could. This led to some great titles like Pac-Man, but it also led to some of the worst games of all time. While sales were strong, the product itself was considered rather weak, and by the 1980s, the video game trend seemed like it was over. Thankfully, in 1985, we had the American release of the NES, a more powerful and better branded kind of gaming. Nintendo actually had a strict rule that really helped them. If your game didn't work, you couldn't sell it. That's what the Nintendo seal of approval meant. This game functions and is approved by us. This higher standard of quality really revitalized the industry, and I think it actually brought us into the gaming era we're in today. Since Atari almost killed all of gaming, it wins the number 1 slot as the biggest failure in all of game company history. Did your favorite fail not make the list? Got an idea for a future top 10? Leave it in the comments down below. I actually want to take a second to give a shout out to one of my subscribers, Darius Whitehead. He's one of my oldest subscribers and he actually graduated from boot camp today. Darius, I wanted to thank you for your hard work and service. Genuinely, that means the world to all of us, and I just wanted to extend my own personal thank you to you. But enough of the cheese. This has been DreamcastGuy saying once again, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked this video, maybe check out my last video. Please subscribe, and if you want, share this somewhere with your friends.